This is the Balanced Growth Show with Dr. Travis Perry, helping successful business professionals like you achieve balance in their lives.
Welcome to another episode of the Balanced Growth Show. I'm your host, Dr. Travis Perry. Today we have with us in studio Brad Barrett. Brad is a managing director and partner at One Capital Management LLC, a private wealth advisory firm managing $5 billion in assets. With nearly 20 years in the financial services industry, he's passionate about finding new ways to educate investors. Having the heart of a teacher, he shares his knowledge and experience through his weekly YouTube, podcast, and radio show, Make Your Money Matter. And with an awesome studio behind him, welcome to the show, Brad. I appreciate having you on.
Oh, Travis, I'm happy to be on. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it was so fun. We almost didn't get to the podcast, just, true transparency. We had so much fun catching up on who you know and where you've been and making some connections. It's been fun here in the pre-show, but catch us up on how did you get to this point? Where did you start from? Did you ever think you were going to be an advisor? Just kind of tell us a little bit about your story of how you got here, man.
Yeah. And again, thanks for having me on. And it was fun for the past half hour. I mean, like we said, we were just kind of chatting about, talk about 1 degree of separation in this world. I've always kind of told people it's interesting. I've never flipped a burger before, and I don't know if that's good or bad. I actually was touched with the idea of being a financial advisor, believe it or not, at the age of 16. Something I talk about often, and I know you do, I've listened to a lot of your shows, which are great, is around the ideas of, the behaviors we all carry and the things that happen in our life and how we adapt to our time. How do we do, where we put our focus? And, these cathartic events, for me happened when I was 16. My dad worked for a company for about 20 years, a very large telecommunications company that went bankrupt. And it was a well-known bankruptcy, the largest behind Enron at the time. And we had sold everything. We had moved cars and it was just happening right in front of me, right? And my dad, who I very much look up to, I just remember thinking at that time, Travis, I was like, I'm 16 years old. I'm a punk kid, right? What do I know? But I just remember feeling touched. Like, I want to learn everything I possibly could about money so that what we were going through as a family wouldn't happen to me. And then from that came immediately thereafter is like, I realized that God kind of touched my heart for a purpose. Like, that's what I want you to do with your life, is to make sure others don't get involved in that either. And so to this day, I've said this before, like, it's funny. I kind of blacked out, but I walked into my local bank and just kind of demanded a job. And sophomore year in high school, I'm a teller at a bank, Washington Mutual, God rest its soul, and worked there in high school for 2 years. Went to college, undergrad, to get my economics degree. And in my freshman year, I took my Series 7 and started my practice in my freshman dorm. And I hooked up with a broker dealer at the time, worked there for about, including the college years, about 6-7 years. And then pulled myself out of that, wanted to go RIA as a registered investment advisor, which I had met the guys from One Capital who had started it years ago. And I'd called them up, had a breakfast, and it just made sense. I was 23 years old at the time. I had maybe $3 or $4 million under management. And they took a shot on me. There were 7 of us, including me at that time. We had about 500 million or so under management. And over the past 13, 14 years, we've grown that to about 5.3 billion as of last quarter, 90 staff, locations, in Santa Barbara, California. Our headquarters is here is Westlake Village, California, just north of LA, but Santa Barbara, San Francisco, Newport Beach, Kansas City, and then Toronto. And it's been a wild, fun ride. And, it's one of those things where I've kind of shared with our clients, like, you've heard the whole notion of passion versus purpose and follow your heart. And I look back, honestly, Travis, over 19 years now, and it wasn't necessarily passion at first, it was purpose. And I think everything I kind of do nowadays revolves around that. And I feel, and I will go to my grave saying this, that I just feel like that had a lot to do with our success, that had a lot to do with our client retention, our growth. And it's been a blessing.
Wow. You've had a quick start. So many people I interview, like, they did not know at age 16 they want to do this. I remember having a paper route and a guy telling me a little bit about what day trading was. And I was like, dude, I want to do that. That sounds phenomenal. Yeah. But like, it was kind of a seed that dropped in my brain. But you, freshman dorm?
Yeah.
And
wow. My first client was I know my first client was a guy still, I mean, one of my best friends still, but my roommate in college, and he had gotten in a car accident in high school, and it was like $30,000 or $40,000, and he just didn't know what to do with it. And so I was helping him with it. And that's, it's amazing, this business, who you can help and how it kind of transpires. Yeah. It was pretty special.
That's wonderful. We need people like you who love what they do and, really can see, essentially the hand of God in what you're doing. I love this. So great. So you have a family. Tell us a little bit about your fam.
I do. I have a wife. We're celebrating our 10-year anniversary next year. Been together about 12 years. Have a son, Brooks, who's 8. You'll be turning 8 here in December. I was just sharing with you, he's getting into ice hockey, which is kind of fun for me. That was my sport growing up, believe it or not, even here in Southern California, right in your hometown, Travis. Yeah. And my daughter, Kate, just turned 6. And it's been a lot of fun, being able to build a career and a practice, and then getting into the stage of building a family and just all the intricacies that come with both. And what a blessing.
So awesome. So obviously we talk about balance and we talk about why it's important, but we each have different reasons. I know family's a big part of it. We talked a little bit about that in the pre-show, but tell us, why is it important that as you're growing this business that you have great balance?
And that's one of the things that intrigued me about your show was I love this notion, because as a business owner, as a partner in a firm, as you're growing and scaling and all these terms that are used, right? There's also the, I think, notion, kind of that app that plays in the background of success, right? And I think we all, have a different term for success. And for me, and I didn't really know this until I met Veronica, and I really started having, Brooks was born, my son, and I realized that to me, success had nothing to do with zeros in the bank account or anything like that. It had a lot to do with my time and my freedom, which I know has been said a lot, but for me, that was really important. And so I operate from the lens within our practice here of scalability to support not only our clients first. Our clients to us here at One Capital will always be number one for us. And in doing that, we want to be able to scale it so that we have time to be fulfilled within our own lives, just as we want for our clients, and therefore coming to them with a much healthier heart, healthier notion, healthier life perspective. So I think when you kind of describe balance, to me, it's always like how we define success. And from there, if you operate from a true like mission statement, of how you define success, you can then operate through your balance, both in your personal life and your professional life. And for me, I think I'm not there yet. My kids are still young, but I think one of my real defining moments of success, not only just my time and my freedom with them to be able to go pick them up, go to their sports, and but it will be when they don't need me or my wife, and they choose to hang out with us, in their 20s and 30s. I think, to me, that's the ultimate success I strive for. By the way, it has nothing to do with my practice, quite frankly, but also has everything to do with it, right? Because if I'm happy there, I feel fulfilled there. I'm coming in every day trying to fulfill others, and I think that's important, especially as an advisor.
No, I think absolutely. I think most advisors, planners that really they're trying to help people have a better way of living, and they really care about what success is. And a lot of times the financial piece, it's connected to so many areas of life, right? As an advisor, I know that, like, it's connected to your health, it's connected to your relationships and how people view you. And so I like that you mentioned success and balance, like same definition. Like, this is balance because it's how I define success. And I have a child age 20 next month. She's 19. I have one who's 18 at this point. And I know what you're saying is your definition is you want your kids to be your friends someday that can come back and be like, I want to hang out with you.
Right.
That's beautiful. And I've toured the country and I've asked people, like, what is your highest priorities in life? God and family. Like, this is the notion that it's always coming back to. Health is part of that as well, but it's usually those two. So as an entrepreneur, and you really are an entrepreneur, like you're helping to grow this firm. You've helped to bring it from 500 million to 5.3 billion, which is awesome. And what you guys are doing is you've got something here, maybe. You've got something. So. You've got something. So tell us, what have you done as you've been, keeping this balance, really trying to hang out with the family and make that a priority? What have you done to scale your business while trying to keep that present?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. I would start out with the notion of, I think, just like in our personal lives with our partner and who we choose to do life with, I think equally as important is your work life too. I mean, we are very fortunate that all the founding members of One Capital are still here. That's in this world, as you well know, Travis, that's not that common. It's pretty rare. So we know we have something special. A lot of it's come from hard work, which then creates luck in that, because some people say, oh, you just got lucky with the partners you have. And that may be true, but I believe you earn your luck. And so I think as we all set out to build this firm, the notion for us at One Capital was always actually a pretty simple statement. And actually the word was in it. It was simple and elegant. We wanted to take the approach as we scaled, as we grew, that we never lost the approach we have with our clients. And I'm proud to say this as an advisor here, as a partner here, that I feel we haven't. Every client who's ever, come in here, and if we had them on, I really truly feel in my heart of hearts that they would say they felt cared for, because the statement, right? No one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And our MO was always operating from that standpoint. And we always kept the client first. And I just feel, looking back, in my tenure of 13, 14 years here, I just kind of look at it like, if we always kept that first. And I know it sounds hooby-dooby, but honestly, man, it works. I mean, that's the proof's in the pudding right there. Now, operationally, obviously, to your question, there's been a lot of verticals we had to create, risks we had to take as a entrepreneur, as a business owner, because at the end of the day, as financial advisors, we need to create a platform, a service model, if you will, that our clients can benefit from. That's the whole reason why we're doing this. So one of our biggest notions was to make sure, as a wealth manager, we wanted to have it all in-house, right? So we wanted to have our wealth management team, which we have an entire team now of CFA, chartered financial analyst, CIO, chief investment officer. We have the whole team built out there. So we didn't have to outsource. That was key point number one. We didn't want to have to outsource or sub-advise or do things called TAMP, third-party asset managers, SMAs, separate managed accounts, none of that. We wanted it in-house. From there, we realized that we wanted to streamline the cost for the client, number one. But number two, we also want, and this is not in any order, we wanted to provide them the central think tank of an investment engine, right? They're coming to us. One of the quantitative measures we all have as advisors is a portfolio design. And we wanted to be the best at it. So we strove for that. And we've now very happily built out a 15 to 20 person team with investment committees, and that was a big focus of ours. So we spent a lot of our own money at the time when revenue was coming in, reinvesting in the firm, hiring the right people to have that platform and that service model for our clients. That was pillar number one. Pillar number two, and again, no priority, they were at the same time, was the client service model, was the servicing team, the associate team, we call them here, right? That was the that had to do with the advisory on the business development side, which is kind of the third pillar we went after, is hiring the right advisors. And I'll get into that in a second, because there's a lot we did there too, but also having the right servicing team, building out the right model for that, in terms of a pod structure versus a direct client associate to advisor to client, communications, all that kind of stuff. And obviously, as we grew, we built out our own technology team, which is something we own here. We own our own technology, because in this world of, all the stuff that's going on, man, we really wanted we spent a lot of money and a lot of time. We own our own technology, which we're very proud of. So our clients know it's secure, and our own director team, operations team, people that are behind the scenes. So we did it outright. And on the business development side, as we grew the company, because as we know, being able to work with clients and was our sole focus to provide them this platform. But we had to essentially, if you build it, they will come. We had to put the money and time into building the platform to be able to service the clients. And we felt that we did risk a lot, especially the partners, their own money and things like that. And it worked out. Now, the risks along the way to build out the business development channel, we didn't realize it at the time, Travis, but we essentially took a model of narrow and deep. We a lot of advisors, they'll tend to move away from niche practices, right? They'll think, oh, if I'm just focusing on airline pilots as an example, then I can only work with airline pilots and I'll never get a referral from an executive or a teacher or someone else, right? And I understand that philosophy, but we really went into it, and I was actually the first guy, kind of for the most part, to do this. Was I focused on first responders? That's my heart. So I work with LA City Fire and Los Angeles Police Department. They're my main clients, and I love them dearly. And I wanted to create a private wealth platform that serves the white collar CEOs that can serve our men in blue, and that mattered to me. So we took the service model to be able to benefit them. And so we kind of, in a way, created our own first little niche practice. And from there, we then brought on advanced planning team, which is actually run by a guy named Wayne Baxter in our office. It's a cross border. So we have a lot of expatriates from Canada to the United States, and he's a Canadian, was a Canadian resident, has since moved down to the States. So he focuses on that, a whole niche practice on that, Canadian, US citizens. We then brought on a sports and entertainment chassis, a guy named Chris Moynes, a great advisor. He actually heads up our Toronto office, works with only athletes and only entertainment, right? So they're getting, it's kind of the whole notion, right? We believed in the, when you go, if your knee hurts, you're not going to go to a brain surgeon, right? Or vice versa. So you don't want a generalist, you want a specialist. And so we really didn't realize at the time, but we were really just following our original model, which was having the services to be able to provide for each of them, and then hiring the right people, in this case, the advisors, the business development vertical, to service them correctly. And through that, we realized, as we look back, man, we had a really great team of specialized advisors focusing, and they are the best in their space, knowing the plans, knowing the workload, knowing all the intricacies that comes with, let's say, an athlete versus a policeman. There's different structures, there's different lifestyles, there's different money involved. There's just a whole host of different planning environments you can get into. And so I look back, and we were just talking about this in a partners meeting the other day, there's a lot of success we gleaned from that. We did it right. We put the clients first always. And through that, we were able to organically grow for a long time. And about 3-4 years ago, we then switched that organic model into more of an acquisition model, right? So we've definitely changed along the way. We're doing both, right? We have organic growth with advisories and clients, but we also went into the acquisition mold. We were a firm that had no debt, and we really wanted to reinvest it. Again, same notion we did 20 plus years ago, and we're still doing that. So we were finding the right advisors, the right groups, if you will, that wanted to roll up with us and really focus on independent, pure, simple, and elegant advice. And so that's, in a very short way, Travis, kind of how we've gone from, half a billion, I should say, to 5.3 billion. And then all the bumps along the way.
Sure. Yeah. And nothing's ever linear, but I can see the structure. You're investing in the firm, you're investing in the client service model. The threads that I'm pulling throughout is, if you build it, and that has worked, and it can work, especially if you're investing in a team, you're investing in your own business model I call it the defense of business, right? Investing in the firm and the business, it's the fulfillment, it's the service, it is the operations of the business. And then you've got the business development, the marketing, advertising, where it's been mainly organic, but very niche. And, but then if you're like, hey, we want to expand another niche, you bring it in-house. You've brought in these other practices that have a specific niche, which is a perfect segue into acquisition model. Cause you're like, hey, what's your niche? We only bring in people who've got a niche or whatever. And now you can start building out more spokes and helping more people. Yeah, I love it. I think it's a great model. What a wonderful structure that you guys have done to be able to pull this out. What would you say along the way? Because you mentioned the bumps and bruises. What were some of the biggest struggles that maybe you've had as you've helped to steer this team with other partners, that as you've scaled and grown this business without losing your balance?
Yeah. So gosh, a couple things. I mean, I'll start with this one, because I think, like all of us, even with our health and our own lives, right? If we're healthy on the inside, then outwardly, we're going to be healthy as well to our external relationships and everything else. And so as a company, not a human body, as a company, as we grew, we went from, remember, 7 of us to like over 90 now. All of a sudden you have a staff and there's culture. So Pat Bowen, our president, and I, a couple of years ago, we basically, after so long, we kind of really looked at our service model again, just kind of retweaking it. And one of the struggles we were having at the time was making sure we had the right alignment between the client associate servicing with the advisors, which ultimately was servicing the end user, which is our clients, right? So our struggle was restructuring our client servicing bin. For the longest time, we had, we ran it appropriately at the time, which was 1 or 2 or 3 servicing or client service associates for maybe 7 or 8 or 9 advisors. And we've since switched that where now we have more servicing models, more client service associates so it's more of a one-on-one, 1-to-2 versus 1-to-4 ratio. That took investment, right? Because we obviously had to put money out to hire the right people, pay salaries and benefits and those kind of things. And that was a struggle for a couple of years because it was hard, right? It's not an income, to be completely candid, it's not an income producing role, right? So it's not directly attached to, business development side, but it is. And so we had to see that and look at it like an investment versus, an expense. And I think for any business owner out there, any entrepreneur, you're going to come into a lot of that. And that was a struggle for us because it's worked out for us, right? But in those first year or 2 or 3, you feel like you're putting a bunch of salaries and benefits out and you're not entirely sure, again, it's not income oriented from a business development standpoint. So, that was a pain point of growth, if you will. There's been a couple verticals that we try to create that didn't pan out. One, my partner Don and I, we were working with a client of ours who happened to be into racing of all things, right? Owned a bunch of auto dealerships, great guy. And anyways, we decided we were going to say, hey, what if we kind of created a niche vertical within our own advisory group to cater to business owners that specifically were business owners for auto dealerships? Because we realized there was a pretty big void there in terms of good financial and corporate servicing advice in that world. And I still hold that this vertical would work, but we hired the wrong guy. So it's a good example of hiring the wrong person for the right reason. You know what I mean? Versus the wrong reason, but the right person or whatever, So that was an example of a failed vertical, to be completely, vulnerable about it. That, it was, I still, again, I know I sound like a typical business owner, entrepreneur, these are my babies, right? And I'm kind of like, I still feel like that would have worked. We just hired the wrong person, but it hasn't come up to resurrect it because we have to find the right person for it. And, it's just, so there's a lot of, like you say, in balance, when you're running a business and you're looking at where you want to put your time and your energy, you have to be very selective, especially as you grow. And I think for us, one thing that we've always never given up on is the time and energy we want to spend first and foremost is always back to our service model, if we keep the client first, we can never lose the time and energy. If we're going and chasing all these deals or, and it's fun to create, right? Every entrepreneur at their bones, like me, it's fun to create. I find my most joy in my life creating. But with that, when you create something, it's a blessing. You have to make sure that we've always said to our clients, at least I haven't from my practice, is my best client is my last client. Meaning if I'm meeting with the discovery of the client tomorrow morning, for example, in a way, I'm interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing me, because I'm like, I need to make sure I can provide the value for you, A, B, you acknowledge that value and it works in your value system, right? And then C, that you're not going to take away from my last client. And I want my clients to know that, because anyone who sees growth, I mean, I've always been, I'm a kind of a skeptic at heart. When I see these people out there growing, I'm like, yeah, but what about the people you're serving? Like, are you just glazing over them? Like, that always is in the back of my head. And so I never want to be a firm touting our size or our numbers. None of us do, without realizing that we got here by doing the right thing for the right people. And that'll always be kind of our mission statement and our overall MO.
Well, you certainly have laid the gauntlet down of what this looks like for other advisors, and quite honestly, for other entrepreneurs and other entrepreneurs out there. They're gleaning, whether they're in the financial, services practice or not. Yeah, they can see what you've done. They put a different product or service in there, and bam, here we go. And we've had others on the show in other areas of work as well, in other industries. But the client first model, the health of a company, just like the health of an individual. If you're not showing up with great balance, it's going to show in your work. Yep. If you don't look like you're a healthy person and you're trying to help people have a healthier lifestyle, it's going to be difficult. If not,
I hate to say it, but you're not going to go and pay for training sessions from a guy who's 5'7" and 350 pounds.
It's just not happening.
I just look at, let's call a spade here. It's okay. Yeah. So it's important that we as human beings have this, logical and then emotional, these two brains operating in our system at all times. And I like to, for us as advisors, we want to bring that to the forefront. Because when you talk about something as powerful as money for people, I mean, it is I will go on record saying it is one of the more powerful emotions that we have. And I mean, even the Bible, it's one of the things that's talked about most. Money in the Bible is talked about more than love itself. Think about that.
Yeah.
This agape love environment that Jesus brought, and literally money is at the core of a lot of these things. And so it's so, not to get into that tangent, but it's very interesting to me that I would argue anyone watching or listening to this, I mean, since maybe the age of 18, when's the last time you can remember that a day has gone by where you haven't thought about money in some aspect?
Sure.
It's like that app that's kind of always going in the background. May not be at the forefront. You may not be looking at it directly, but if you bought a cup of coffee this morning, right, you thought about, man, I'm paying $4. I mean, it's crazy how powerful an emotion it is. And so I think for advisors listening, we have to remember that. Like in a discovery meeting we do, which is the first meeting with a client, most clients are going to come in thinking they're going to talk about their income, their debts, their cash flow, their investments. And that's all true. That's the quantitative data. But what's equally as important that we can't forget is the qualitative, right? The relationships, the interests, the hobbies, the values, right? These are all as important to us here at One Capital as I think it should be for any advisor out there worth their salt, really talking to them, because if the client feels like you're addressing those, you can bring, in therapy, they call it a mirroring session, right? You're kind of repeating what they're saying, right? And so if you think about that from a coaching them, as which totally falls into your world, right? When you're with a client, you're somewhat coaching them in the world of educating them for their own money. And what people don't realize is they're operating from some sort of event that has happened. It can be as simple as they grew up with no money and they're operating from that basis of system. It could be they were raised on a silver spoon with a lot of money. There's a lot of ways that this can shape up, but as an advisor, you're sitting there trying to make sure, call it KYC, know your client, like know where they are. And the questions you ask have a lot to do with the success you're going to have in that relationship.
Yeah.
Because again, if they feel like you care, that's really important, but it's what you're doing then to provide the value for them. And I think that's really important. And I've since learned that in the past really 5 or 10 years of my almost 2-decade career now, which is why I wanted to start the Make Your Money Matter show and really title it that, because I realized for so many years and thousands of clients being served and all the discovery meetings, it's just one of those things that has such an emotional tie to it. Everyone likes to bring rationale to it, right? Oh, I'm going to borrow at 4% and I'm going to earn 5%. So my arbitrage is there.
It's very emotional.
But we don't realize, like, hey, wait a minute. Yeah. I mean, how many investments have you seen from advisors or clients? Myself, I've seen that emotions are the actual real problem, not the logic behind the investment.
And you and I know this. You've served clients. I've done a lot of research with the clients themselves. And it's very much relational decisions. My spouse doesn't want to do this, and I want to do. It's emotional. Like, I feel really good about this, so I'm going to say yes. It's a very much emotional connection. And as much as we want to say we're logical creatures, we're really not. We are subject to emotions and the memories, and the brain works based on triggering those emotions and memories. So it is, you're right on. The quantitative data, is needed, but truly working with the individual client and making that connection is vital to helping this. Now, this is part of your company culture. Let's talk about company culture for just a second, because I think, at some point we've talked about what are some other struggles, and culture might be, as you've built your company, you've grown fast from 7 to 90 in this time frame. What are some of the struggles of keeping the balance in as a core function of culture in your business?
I would answer that starting at the genesis of it, which is the hire, right? When we're talking with a person, whatever the role might be, it's finding the who, not the what. A couple of years ago, we employed a testing arena to kind of get the insights called Culture Index. A lot of S&P 500 companies do it to really get in the mindset for them. But it wasn't just for us as the employer, potentially, it was for them. And actually, what was really cool about it, it just showed you certain levels, and it was a very simple test, almost a litmus test, if you will, around where their attention to detail was. Were they a type A kind of a person? Were they a servicer? Were they a protector? It just had a lot of and there's a lot of these tests out there, I'm sure you know, right? But that was one of the things that we added, literally called Culture Index, to our culture, right? To really hone in on the notion that we've always believed, which is, I think, a part of our success, was finding the who, not the what. Someone who came in looking to apply for a client servicing role because that's what they thought they wanted. And through the culture index and through the interview process, we have a pretty vigorous one here. I mean, we have probably a 3-step overall thing, meeting with the partners, meeting with HR. We do it. We try to do it right. So there's multiple levels here, not just one person on a hiring scheme after one phone call and like, oh, this is the person, right? We're really doing it for them too, because we want to invest in them and we want them to feel validated in the role that they're going to play within our firm. Because if we do that right, the role they're going to play within our firm directly applies to the role that they're going to play to our clients, which to us is our firm. And I think through that lens, when we find the who, we're together helping them figure out, are they the right person for a client servicing role, given the parameter that we set for that role with the type of people we need and what the job entails, or are they more analytical? Would they serve better on our portfolio design team, or maybe more operational on our operations team? Maybe there's just with the company as we grow, as you know, right? There's different departments, if you will. And so, sorry, it's a longer-winded answer on that to basically say it's hiring the who, not the what. I think is a big deal there.
I love it. There's a lot of nuggets and kernels you've dropped here today, and it's been fun to talk about this culture of balance and how you've been able to grow and scale and really been able to kind of get behind the curtain of what you guys are doing. It's been fantastic. Any last things that you would suggest, any comments or thoughts that you want to leave with the listeners here before we wrap up?
I don't know. I was kind of thinking about this and listening to some of your shows, and I might as well end on this. And we've all heard this term before, time is money, right? And I was joking with my 8-year-old the other day. He's starting to learn what dad does. And I tell him, like, I'm not the sexiest job in the world. Like, I don't go and run into burning buildings, and I'm not a doctor, but it's important, right? I was trying to express this to him. He's 8, right? Mm-hmm. But I did say I got one trick in my bag, and I think everyone on here would appreciate this, no matter what zeros you guys have behind your names or not. But time will, like you talk about in your show, is balance and time. Time will always matter more than money. Like you and I are in the business of helping people with their money, but we're really actually trying to buy them back time, because that's a commodity. They don't make enough of it. God gave you a finite time period, and our job is to enhance every second of that, right? Which I know you speak to heavily. But I would argue, and I would sit on this heart for anyone watching or listening. If a 90-year-old right now came to you, whatever age you are right now, and let's say this 90-year-old is worth $10 billion. You make up a number, doesn't matter. $10 billion, right? And said, I will trade places with you right now, but in trading places, it'll be permanently. Would you do it? Now, if you're 40 years old or 60 years old, you're probably answering no, and you probably never thought about it that way before. And the reason why is because even if you had $10 billion, you're 90 years old. You lost 30 years of your life, 50 years of your life. So it proves the notion that I know you talk about, which is why I love your show, Travis, is that balance and time matter more, and the rest will come.
Yeah. Brad, this is so good. And it's a great place to end the show, is that in order to live our lives on purpose, you've got to make the time. And you're exactly right. Time is money. It's how I got into this whole bit, being an advisor, helping with their assets, turning to time as an asset. And really being able to help others with balance. I appreciate your example, what you're doing for your clients, man. You're the real deal. And if people want to reach out to you and engage with you, where can they go? Yeah.
Well, again, I appreciate having me on, Travis. Probably the best place to reach us, you can look up our firm on our website at onecapital.com. You can also look on our YouTube channel, which is Make Your Money Matter with Brad Barrett. You can obviously set some time with our advisors if that's what you're looking for, or just follow us along, because we do a lot of these great things, obviously, with guys like Travis, and we're just fortunate to be out there. Thanks, man. So good to have you. If you love this as much as I have, like, share, subscribe, do all the things. If there's someone that needs to hear this or needs to be introduced to Brad, share this along. It's a great way to get to know behind the scenes what's going on, and other advisors and entrepreneurs out there. You can't have balance. You can't have growth. It can't exist at the same time. Yep. You just have to know what matters the most. So thanks again for being here, Brad. Appreciate it. Travis, I appreciate having me on. And remember, until next time, live life on purpose.